Hello and welcome to Laketoria Entertainment Game Reviews. I'm Kevin, and the game I'm reviewing is Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection. Today, I have my courageous co-host CJ helping me out with this review. Say hello, CJ.
Tiger uppercut. What's up, everybody?
This format is going to be set as a discussion. We're still going to go over my 5 main points of reviewing. First, we'll go over the reason, then the story, after that the gameplay, then the gripes, and finally the rating. Now, with that out of the way, let's get to the review. The reason. My early memories of Street Fighter happened at the Exton Mall when it used to have an arcade. A friend and I used to hang out there before the movies. And, well, we played Street Fighter 2 and that 6-player X-Men arcade game, but mainly Street Fighter 2. I feel like anyone who's into fighting games for real has played Street Fighter and has fond or cold memories of the game. And if you were to play it long enough, you would have both. I fall in both categories. So I guess the reason why I got this game is because of the nostalgia. How about you, CJ? Why did you get the game?
I really have to echo your sentiments here, just because for me it was definitely nostalgia. My first memories of Street Fighter were actually playing it on your Super Nintendo when you weren't home and playing Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It was like 20 plus years ago. It was one of those games where like my games when I was younger, I always played what you played. We only had one system back then. And it was usually your system, or like when I had my original Nintendo. But playing Street Fighter 2, because I wasn't allowed to play Mortal Kombat, and Mortal Kombat wasn't like huge. Mortal Kombat was just coming out, I guess, when I started playing Street Fighter 2. But Street Fighter 2 is what I was allowed to play. The Street Fighter movie came out around the time I started playing Street Fighter 2, so I was kind of a late adopter. So for me, playing the game and watching the movie and the kids show on USA, Street Fighter had its own like world back then, before video games were really doing that. Like I said, like I was big into fighting games. That was the fighting game I was allowed to play.
I see. So that is mainly just nostalgia then.
Of course.
Story and gameplay. I'm going to be straight with you. I have no idea what the canon is for Street Fighter. I've read the Odon comics, which is different from the animated movies, which is different from, well, each other, which is different from the game. When I try to figure out the true canon on the internet, it'll tell you that the video games are the true canon. I lost my mind when I saw the Street Fighter timeline. It kind of goes in this order: Street Fighter, Street Fighter Alpha 2, Street Fighter Alpha 3, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, Ultra Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5, Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. That's kind of crazy that it's set up that way. And after seeing the timeline, it kind of made me love Street Fighter Alpha 2 even more, because the game kind of focuses more on story than the previous games. Granted, it was only like 2 extra conversations out of what you would have gotten in an original game, but I kind of feel like it kind of gave Street Fighter its story. It started the whole thing off. Trying to separate story and gameplay, I feel like it's kind of intertwined a little bit. So I guess I should ask you, what's your favorite game in the collection that you love playing?
In the collection, my favorite game individually would probably be Street Fighter Alpha 3. The difficulty and the fact that you get one shot at beating Bison at the end, which kind of, for me, was just one of those, I don't know, it just added more to playing the story mode. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you lose, you gotta start over. And it was a pain. And out of all the Street Fighters, I feel like Street Fighter Alpha 3 was just my most memorable. I remember me, you, and Andy sitting upstairs in your room when I beat Street Fighter Alpha 3 with Dan. And it was like my single most greatest accomplishment in fighting games. And it took me forever to do it. Like, how many times did I have to fight Sagat? But
well, I mean, Sagat used to be a pain in the ass. I mean, I still have a hard time playing Street Fighter Alpha 3. Even when I go up against Bison, it's like, okay, I only get one shot at this, so I have to go through the whole thing again.
It's just one of those games, and I remember how it happened when I did that jump in the corner and was able to block the Psycho Crusher in the air and hit the lame Hadouken from Dan right in the back of Bison's head when he reappears. And it was just like KO, and I was just like, oh, I did it. And I felt like I was the greatest in the world. But Street Fighter Alpha 3, and really the Street Fighter Alpha series, is my favorite gap of Street Fighter games. And you are right. Like, definitely story-wise, Street Fighter Alpha is definitely the way to play the game. To actually get, like, was like the first games for Street Fighter to actually tell a cohesive story.
I do agree with you on that, and I think the gameplay for Street Fighter Alpha, I think, set the tone for all the other Street Fighters to come out after that, because blocking in the air is freaking awesome. Because when you play the original ones, like Street Fighter Alpha 2, no, excuse me, when you play Street Fighter 2 or anything in that era, you can't block in the air, and that drives me crazy. So is there a game in the collection that you'll never play again?
I have 2 games.
Okay.
Street Fighter 1, like the very first one, and Street Fighter 3 New Generation.
Okay, well, I can see why you would never want to play Street Fighter 1, because I had never played it before, and I didn't know what I was expecting when I got the collection to sit down and play it. When you try to figure out where Street Fighter came from, it's kind of amazing that that game that's there, that's what we got from that crappy little game. But just playing it was so difficult and so frustrating, and the power structure was so off. So when you try to do an Hadouken, it took off half your opponent's power. Vice versa, if the opponent hit you, he could one-shot you, or I guess he couldn't really one-shot you, but he could take you down in 2 or 3 hits, which just drove me crazy. But for Street Fighter 3, I mean, yeah, it was a little bit new, but they added in a couple of awesome new stuff. Why don't you like Street Fighter 3?
I think when I first playing Street Fighter 3, and I played Third Strike before I played New Generation, to be fair, but not in the collection, just in general. I didn't even know there was that many Street Fighter 3s, to be honest with you, until I got the collection. Playing Street Fighter 3 is the one where I was just like, I enjoyed the other Street Fighter 3s, Second Impact and Third Strike. I really just didn't enjoy the New Generation. I can't really put my finger on why I didn't enjoy it, but I think it's one of those comparison type deals. Or I hold Street Fighter Alpha in such high esteem. I hold Street Fighter 3 Second Impact and Third Strike are quality games. The dozen Street Fighter 2 games that they give you is overwhelming, and I only really play this for nostalgia purposes. Like, if I had to pick a game, it's one of those, I'm not going to shit on Street Fighter 1 because it is what it is, and you have it purely just because it kicked off the universe. But the first Street Fighter Alpha 3 is like my second least favorite. So, and I just didn't feel right playing it.
Wait, Street Fighter Alpha 3 or Street Fighter 3?
Street Fighter 3 New Generation.
Okay, alright, okay.
That, and with Street Fighter Alpha 3, there was just, I was overwhelmed with so many new characters that I kind of lost my mind.
There wasn't enough there?
Yeah, it just wasn't. There was new characters that I get, like, while they're in the game and everything, and I think I'm just, at this point in my fighting game career, I'm used to seeing certain players in a fighting game, where Street Fighter 3 flipped the script. You got Ken, Ryu, and Chun-Li, and that was it.
Well, the weird part is Chun-Li wasn't added until Third Strike. In Street Fighter Generation, they did the traditional, there's 8 players here, and Ken and Ryu are the only new ones, and they gave you 6 new characters where you're like, what am I messing with here? I don't even know, because they had different fighting styles. Then
and that may have been it. Just like the game was totally different, and I was expecting my standard Street Fighter characters. I was expecting Sagat, who's my favorite character, and when I didn't get him, it was like, there's Ken and Ryu, but that's in every Street Fighter. And then there's everyone else, and you're like, well, who are these guys? This guy kind of looks like Ken. Damn sure doesn't play like him. So for me, Street Fighter 3 New Generation just didn't do it for me. With Third Strike, they at least had some of the original Street Fighter characters I enjoyed playing with.
Okay, alright. Gripes. I only have one gripe with this game. I think it's kind of 2, but in the end, when you think about it, I still think it's just one gripe. I feel like I overpaid for this game. You get 12 games for the price of $39.99. And if you're giving me Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Championship, and Street Fighter 2 Turbo, which are practically the same game, why can't I have Street Fighter Alpha Gold and Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max? I mean, I got Street Fighter 3 New Generation, Street Fighter 3 Second Impact, and Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. I'd like to know why these games weren't included. If I got those games, maybe I wouldn't be so bothered with the price, but at the same time, when you are getting those games, all you're getting is the arcade mode and versus mode. So you're not even getting the complete games in each one. So if you gave me everything in the game, then I would have been more satisfied. Because in Street Fighter Super, there used to be a tournament mode where you can set up tournaments and play with your friends, and maybe that's just kind of like an online thing, but I kind of would have liked to have that for offline. And in Street Fighter, what was it? Street Fighter 3 Max? Or no, Street Fighter 3 Alpha. No. Street Fighter Alpha 3 actually has a dramatic mode where you can have two people fighting the computer at the same time. That's not included in this also. I didn't get the full game, and that's why I'm just kind of perturbed about this whole thing and paying $40 for this game. What about you?
I'm kind of going to echo the same thing. It's not so much that it wasn't worth the money for me, because I feel like, well, A, I got it on sale, and B, the Street Fighter Museum was awesome. It was just awesome. I really loved the Street Fighter Museum, but since we're talking about gripes, there wasn't enough games and gameplay in it for me. Like you said, Street Fighter Alpha Gold, Street Fighter 3 Max, Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max. What about the EX series? What about a fun little bonus like Puzzle Fighter? What about Street Fighter the movie? And these are all games that they mentioned in the Street Fighter Museum, with the exception of EX. They act like EX never happened, but it did, and you should acknowledge it because it was awesome. But like, there's games that they mentioned in the museum that aren't even in the anniversary edition. I would even like to see them go as far as doing the Street Fighter 4 in this game, in the 30th anniversary. I don't mind that they're not doing Street Fighter 5, because Street Fighter 5 is still coming out with DLC and stuff like that. But Street Fighter 4 is even backwards compatible for Xbox's marketplace. So I feel like adding everything from Street Fighter 1 to Street Fighter 4 would have been just a great thing.
I kind of feel like the whole thing with Street Fighter 1, 2, and 3 was to keep the whole sprite thing going on, because with Street Fighter 4, it was kind of like a 2.5. The collection is all just 2D stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I would love to have Street Fighter 4 in the
it's
collection.
A celebration of Street Fighter, and if it's in the music, I would have rather it just be a celebration of all Street Fighter. Maybe even add in Puzzle Fighter as a fun little bonus.
And you're right, I would have loved to see the EX series in there as well. I don't know what the whole deal was, and it did feel a little incomplete to me. When you're giving me an anniversary collection, I would have liked to see at least one EX game there, but I wasn't angry that I didn't get it. It would have been awesome having Street Fighter 4 there, but once again, I wasn't angry not getting it. The museum, okay, yeah, I can see the museum actually being something that was kind of cool and educational, and being able to go through all that artwork and stuff. I just kind of feel like they left out all the stuff that I wanted to see in the Street Fighter game, or at least if they gave me the complete versions of the game, like I said earlier, I think I would have been happier.
And I agree with you. I think if it's in the museum, they should have included it in some way, like Street Fighter 2, the movie game. That would have been a fun game to play. It was only released in Japan. That would have been something really cool to throw in this anniversary collection. They threw in Street Fighter 1 in the collection, which I think was a cool touch. I just feel like they could have added more and better versions of what they added. Because you're right, some of these games are incomplete. I would have loved to have Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max, just because all the characters that were in Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max.
You're right, there are a lot that are there, because they also have new characters in there too, like Maki and Ingrid, and I'm trying to remember, because they had like 4 or 5 new characters that were never in the series. But Eagle was in there, and Eagle was a character that was in Street Fighter 1. And he's playable in Street Fighter Alpha 3 Max. And I'm like, I kind of wanted to play as him, but I guess that's not going to happen. All right, that's fine.
They came out with a good collection, but I feel like they missed the mark where they could have capitalized on a few things. And I guess I can understand not adding in EX or 4 because of the different animations to the games and the different engines that they run off of. Fine, I can live with that. I can't live with the fact that they never mentioned EX in their museum. That really baffles me. It's like it didn't. They mentioned Street Fighter the movie, the game, but not EX. And Street Fighter the movie, the game was the worst, and for some reason had a playable version of Akuma. But Akuma wasn't even in the movie. And I'm talking about the movie starring Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Well, okay, all right, that one, gotcha. Yeah,
that was mentioned in the museum, but EX wasn't. Get out of here. And again, I gotta go back. Street Fighter 2, the movie, the animated one.
Yeah.
That has its own game, and I've never played it, and I really want to play it.
Rating. Okay, so what rating would you give this game out of 10?
I'm going to give it a 8.
Okay, how come?
For nostalgia, I put it at a 7. Because let's face it, we know what we're getting out of all these games, and then for the lack of content, that 7 went down to a 6. And I mean the content like in game, like you said with Street Fighter Alpha 3 missing like dramatic mode and things like that.
Right.
But then when you add in the Street Fighter Museum, where you get all the artwork, all the soundtracks, I bumped it up back to an 8. I had to give it 2 points for all that. For the Street Fighter Museum, gave it 2 points alone. Like all the games, we knew what we were getting pretty much, minus the lack of modes. But we knew the gameplay. It wasn't going to be like a new Street Fighter. I feel like everyone had their favorite once they picked up the game. Like, ooh, I'm going to play Street Fighter 2 Turbo, or Super Street Fighter 2, or Street Fighter 2 with the comma versus Street Fighter 2 without the comma. Little things like that. But with the content and the Street Fighter Museum content, I'm giving this one an 8.
Okay, well, this is a Street Fighter classic, and I love being able to walk down memory lane playing Street Fighter 2 and Super Street Fighter 2, and playing Street Fighter Alpha 2 was awesome, but the collection, to me, was just a nostalgia train that didn't last very long. I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. The museum was pretty cool, but it wasn't enough for me. I feel like this game is best played online and not really on your own.
I can somewhat agree with you on that. It just, for me, I think where we part ways is that the Street Fighter Museum for me was just, it blew me away. And for you, I guess it was just like, man.
Well, I feel like this is information you could have gone on Wikipedia and picked up. You could have gone to like an official Street Fighter site, but because they gave it all to you now, it's like, oh, here you go. Like the stuff that they tell you about Street Fighter 2010, when that used to be a Nintendo game that was part of the Street Fighter franchise. I mean, there's YouTube pages and like I said, Wikipedia pages that you can go to that would have told you all this. And I guess it's kind of cool seeing where Street Fighter came from.
I agree. There are Wikipedia pages that, will have this, but you gotta remember it's a collection game. And a lot of these games aren't meant for replay value. It's meant for nostalgia and to look at value. When, like the Thanos Infinity Gauntlet I have, it's for a display. Nothing more, nothing less.
Fine, then buy an art book or like an encyclopedia knowledge stuff for Street Fighter. I have my own thing of that stuff.
They gave you an art book. It's called the Museum.
No, an actual art book. I own 2 Street Fighter art books. I own a Street Fighter encyclopedia that goes through all this other stuff. And they're trying to put it in the game telling me, all right, yeah, makes it all. I mean, to me, it's not enough. To me, it's like if I'm the one that usually starts digging through lore and starts looking for things. So if I really wanted that, I would have done something here. I'm not expecting it in my game. It was cool. I am kind of trashing it. But what I'm saying is, it's not bad. All I'm saying is, this information that you gave me was information that I knew. Well, I won't say I knew all of it, but most of it I knew going into it. And I guess if you're a Street Fighter fan, you're going to know this before going into it.
There was great stuff in there. And as for you having the hard copies of this stuff, I mean, my birthday's coming up.
Thank you for watching Laketoria Entertainment Game Reviews. I'd like to thank CJ for helping me out on this discussion. Any final words on Street Fighter before we go?
Street Fighter, to me, is the #1 fighting game of all time. Like, series. And you can debate me on it all you want, but there's really no debate.
Okay, that's fine with me then. I mean, I grew up with Street Fighter, and Street Fighter was my very first fighting game that I played. So, I guess I'd have to agree with you. As always, you guys stay safe, and watch out for bears.